Welcome to WYPL's Book Talk. My name is Toni Braswell, and we are very excited to have with us today the author, Rosemary Reed Miller. She will be with us today discussing her book, Threads of Time, The Fabrics of History. I just want to start by giving a little background information about Ms. Miller. She has served on several professional boards, the African American Theater Company, DC Economic Development Commissions, the Woodley House Arts and Media Service, and the Interracial Council of Business Opportunities. She has been an officer for the Howard University Faculty Wives Association of Women Business Owners. She was the delegate also to the White House Conference on Economic Development and was a member of the Presidential Task Force of Education Training for Minority and Business Enterprises. She's currently the president of the African American Travel Association and president of her own civic organization, Neighbors, Inc. She has also received numerous awards and recognitions. Ms. Reed currently teaches fashion merchandising at Prince George Community College, and she has also taught at the University of the District of Columbia and Howard University. Thank you for being with us today, Ms. Reed, and supporting public libraries.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I'd like to start first by asking you, you have a background in history, but you've swung into the fashion world. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
I'm sure it's in my genes. My mother taught art. My mother went to the University of Pennsylvania. She taught arts in the Philadelphia school, and her grandmother enjoyed sewing and design. My mother did. I just grew up in my house sort of always fiddling with this, that, and whatever. And so even though I used to write for newspapers, I sort of backed into, I used to do craft designs when I worked in Jamaica, West Indies, and I sold at department stores. And I thought I could just kind of open a shop, and it was sort of slightly off Connecticut Avenue, which is a traditional shopping area in Washington. I thought it was off Avenue, I could do that, and continued my writing, and it just totally took over. So the book is like getting me back on track, my way.
Now the piece that you're wearing, who designed that and where is that?
Joyce Scott. Joyce is from Baltimore. She used to do designs and fashions. Now she does, and these are antique beads and buttons. Now she does huge installations, and she's known around the world. She's a treasure of Baltimore.
And she's also one of the designers that's featured in the book.
Yes,
I had fun looking at some of her pieces, and I think maybe one of the quilts that she did also.
She and her mother are known for that. PBS in Maryland did a story on her. Both of them, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was fun to look at. Now, tell us, how did you arrive at the name Toast and Strawberries for your boutique?
Well, I was working in Jamaica, West Indies. And strawberries there were, I'm from the north, I'm from Philadelphia, and strawberries were something we enjoyed, which are hard to get in the West Indies. You get mangoes in the West Indies, you know. And so we had a party, and I had a lot of friends from the north, and we sort of said, well, let's have something that's of, continental United States, and that was strawberries, and they were kind of expensive. So there were some left over, and I said to my roommate, we're going to eat these things, And we ate them for breakfast, and we had toast and strawberries for breakfast. So I was going to do a story about my work there and whatever, and I never got to the story. And because I was wholesaling crafts and whatever from Jamaica, I had the name Toast and Strawberries.
Toast and Strawberries. It's a real quaint name. I thought about that name and saw pictures of it. I think there's a storefront picture in the book.
We sold everything but Toast and Strawberries.
Yeah.
Except we've had people run in for lunch, and I said, well, if you'd called ahead for a reservation, I would have told you it was a
I wondered what it would be like, to go in there. Also, you stated in the book that Toast and Strawberries displayed examples of how dressmakers have served as an avenue to freedom and self-reliance for African Americans, slave women. Could you expound a little bit more on that for us?
I think it really, I was talking about the book. There were early women years ago, I'm sorry, let's go, centuries ago, that dressmaking and designs was a skill, and some of them were even more skilled. And we have Elizabeth Keckley on the book, who was a former slave, and she designed for the top families in St. Louis and also in Washington, D.C. She ended up designing for Mary Lincoln, and she did so well. She was selling dresses in those days for $150, $200, that she had a burgeoning business, and that was a way of other women who did very well too.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did the home of Toast and Strawberries was located at DuPont Circle in Washington? How did you come about finding that home and wanting to be on that site?
DuPont Circle is such an interesting area in Washington. A lot of your internet, almost every embassy in the world is located, has a location in Washington, and they're within about 2 or 3 blocks of that area. And a lot of educational organizations are. So it was a very international, very unique area. And in the 60s when I opened, blacks weren't sort of moving around the city in Washington and opening in different places. I didn't even think about that, because I thought of it as an integrated area, but I found out, and I was on the west side of Connecticut Avenue, I found that the blacks didn't, do businesses, have businesses on the other side. So it almost takes an out-of-town person to kind of do something like that. And people said, "Oh, we're so, intrigued. How did you do that? Or why did you do that?" And I said, "But I have friends 1 block away." So we did it, and it was created a bit of a stir. And we had interesting designs by local designers. We had things from around the world. And we even sold a baby bag carrier. It was a fun time. It was fun.
Yeah. What inspired this book, Threads of Time? What was the inspiration?
I used to model years ago. I did fashion shows, et cetera, et cetera. And people asked us during Black History Month, could we do something on blacks in fashion? And I was embarrassed that I realized I didn't know much about the contributions of blacks in fashion. You know how you would use Black history of inventors and this and that, whatever. And here I am having a store and female and all sorts of stuff, and not having anything in terms of not knowing. So I ran over to Howard University. They had a Spingarn library there. I went to the Library of Congress, our local library and whatever, and they immediately told me about Elizabeth Keckley, who did work for Mrs. Lincoln, and Ann Lowe, who designed Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress.
Wow. What was it like? I read that you wrote a little bit for Women's Wear Daily and the Miami Herald, the Washington Post, Essence, Glamour. What was it like writing for them, and what type of things did you talk about?
Profiles of basically women. I supported myself in terms of freelance writing, and then I also worked at the Department of Agriculture in their journalism, their media section, and I wrote for the Afro-American, and I still do write for newspapers too, and that's why I said the book was a long time coming. I just had various ideas. I had about 10 books in mind, but that evolved out of having information about the women who I would do at each fashion show, and I just built more and more copy, except I had no idea how much you need when you start to do a book. It was a lot more than I thought.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next question, that what was the experience like researching for the book, the whole
I certainly enjoyed the research. It's just, it was fascinating finding hints of this person did that, and I would expand on it, go to other libraries, using other library systems. We are lucky in Washington, we have Library of Congress. The Schlesinger Library was helpful. I can Schomburg in New York. I was everywhere, digging up more and more information, because you get like 2 or 3 sentences about somebody, and then you had to kind of get some meat to that more. It took a lot of time.
You mentioned in one interview, a past interview, that history was your muse, in a sense. In what way?
It's a way of looking at the world. I just do feel that I'm very clear that nothing is the first time, and I'm always interested to know what came before. And that's I think it's a whole other way of looking at life, but specifically that's why I read about the women, is that I knew of current designers, but I didn't know others who came before then, and I felt maybe other people don't either. And I wanted to make sure that they understood there was talent way before the 70s and 1970s, 1980s.
Okay. If you used one word to describe this piece of work, what would that word be and why?
Okay. Basically, one word is really hard. Basically, I can't do one. I would just say I wanted to share the information.
Wanted to share it.
Yeah, it's just, you suddenly realize people just don't know. You feel like it's important that, just, I talk about history is not just generals and, presidents. It's people, and they flesh out, they make the town. That's why it's called the fabric of history, the threads of time.
Yeah. As I read some of the passages that were in the book, it's, you introduce them, first as dressmaker, and then you begin to just really weave right on through other aspirations that they had and other things.
There's so many, many of them started, some people did whatever and got to dressmaking, and other people did dressmaking and ended up other areas too.
Doing other things.
And they touched American history in very interesting ways.
Yeah. You also mentioned in the book that you were fortunate that Elizabeth Keckley, is that, am I pronouncing it right, that she actually wrote a book about her life, but that a lot of the information from the early dressmakers often came from oral family history.
Yes, sure. Keckley luckily did write, and her book wasn't in circulation for a while and later was picked up again. She wrote about her designing for Mary Lincoln. It was very important, and her observations of the Lincoln family. The other people we had to just dig up and keep digging.
And get that information from family. I thought it was really interesting when I looked at the chapter dealing with Ann Lowe, and she was called the Dean of American Designers. How did she get that?
It's from her story. I was not able to corroborate that because I went over to Mrs. Meriwether Post. She knew her informally, and I can't tell if she actually did work for her, but she supposedly introduced her to Christiane Dior when they were in France, and said she was trying to figure out a way to give her the kind of status that she knew Ann Lowe deserved and would appreciate, and she said she was the Dean of American Designers.
Wow, that's neat. One of the other designers, Zelda Valdez, she had a trademark gown, sort of sexy gowns. Could you tell us a little bit about her?
There's a singer that she designed for named Joyce Bryant. I'm hoping people in the audience might. She was a singer, and Joyce was so wild that she actually dyed her hair silver. You know how everybody's doing the blonde now? She did silver. And Zelda said to her, "I can make you kind of, I don't know what, give that kind of glitzy feeling if you let me design dresses for you," which we now do the red carpet look. Is she was just saying exactly the same thing, is that your clothes do, well, I hate to say clothes do make the person or whatever. So she did a lot of strapless dresses that came in at the knee and then fluted out. Balenciaga and whatever did that. And one dress she did so tight and so fantastic at the knees that they had to carry, they darken the club and whatever, and they carry out Joyce Bryant, and she'd be leaning against somewhere, and she'd sing, and then they darken at the very end of the set, and then they'd carry her out again. But she looked fabulous while she was out there,
Yeah, I saw the pictures of her in there, and I saw that the designer had to help her get in some of those dresses. She had to have a lot of help.
And then she did work for Dorothy Dandridge. Ruby Dee also shared a program with me to talk about her designing, Zelda designing for her.
Because there's a beautiful picture of Dorothy in here with the designer. Seems to be working on one of the hems.
They said limousines. She had a boutique across from Carnegie Hall in New York City, which even in those days was a fabulous location. And they said limos would be lined up around the block. She did work for Marian Anderson, the singer. Eartha Kitt swears to me, well, we had a picture of her with Eartha Kitt, and she said she designed for her, but Eartha Kitt said, "I don't remember." She said, "I don't do the 50s. So I only can say that, she designed for Eartha Kitt, but, Eartha Kitt won't corroborate.
I thought there was another really interesting person featured in here was Madam C.J. Walker, and she worked, I believe, for Ann Pope the designer Ann
Yeah,
What
that's a
what
story that's
relation
really
did
good.
they have?
Because we always hear and this is in her book, this biography, her great-grandniece, Lelia Bundles, has written about her, and Annie Malone shows up all over. There's a street named after Annie Malone in St. Louis. There's a parade in her name. But Madam C.J. Walker was known as a millionaire, first black millionaire, but that was a promotional thing. She probably never grossed much more than $500,000. Unfortunately, she died when she was 53, which meant her income was, modest, and her daughter Aaliyah did sort of spend her money more than earned it. But Annie Malone, when she started out designing, that's how she got in the book. But then she switched over to making hair products, and this is in the 70s, 90s. And a lot of blacks in those days would put almost anything on their hair to kind of, keep control, including accessories, anything. And so they had a lot of problems with their hair and whatever. So she designed products that she made. She put them in small tins. She put her label. She designed, sold. She knew she would sell more. She had other people selling for her. I hope that sounds familiar. So people did that, and she had a college called Poro College where she taught you how to take care and whatever. And one of the women she had was Madam C.J. Walker had another name at those days, who sent her to Denver to sell for Annie Malone. And then Annie Malone was told that somebody in Denver was selling a product that was very similar to hers. She sent somebody there, and they had these advertising wars back and forth. This is a real, Perot thing. Yeah. And Madam C.J. Walker at that point had to leave Denver, and then she took on that name, and she did very well. But Annie Malone was multi-millionaire. She had $14 million in 1928. So she's not even, that was not promotional. She really was a millionairess.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now the designer, Toni Whitaker, was known for the Houston Society gowns and the theater costumes.
She's still alive.
Yeah. She did the silk ribbon evening piece. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Do you know some history behind that?
No, she just does all kinds of beautiful pieces. She's trained and studied Syracuse University and whatever, and she does costuming was her forte, but that meant evening dresses, that has sort of a drama, are what she likes, and she still does that, and she does special. She does costumes for plays in Houston now.
Okay.
And then people who want to have interesting dresses, she still continues that. Toni Whitaker Boutique.
Okay, her pieces were very beautiful. There was the silk ribbon dress I saw in the book. I'm just staring at that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is just wonderful.
Well, she sent me pictures of special dresses. That's why it's in the book.
The details were absolutely beautiful.
The craftsmanship is wonderful.
Toast, now getting back to what you mentioned before about the baby carrier. Toast and Strawberries was the first to sell the baby carrier, and it brought national attention. Can you tell us how?
Well, we're in Washington, and one of the women a customer came in with it, and you could only get the Snugly by catalog, a little pamphlet in those days. The people who had designed it were in the Peace Corps. And so I was also pregnant, and I said, that's it, this is what I want. And so we got the carrier, and then we asked them if we could sell it in the store. This is in 67. And so we were the first store to have it. We worked on the design with them. They sold it, the Snugly, to a major firm now. It's still around, and it takes a day-old baby, and it, to me, is a way to do it.
Yeah, there's also a picture of you in there with your daughter, right?
Yeah.
With your daughter in the Snugly. You feature pictures of, wanted to get back to the quilts, the subject on the quilts too. You featured pictures of some quilt designs done by Elizabeth and Miss Hazel Blackman and Joyce Scott. Do you do quilts? Have you ever done?
I've repaired quilts. I haven't actually made them.
Okay.
And there's Harriet Potter, who's in there, who died in she was born in 1837. It's one of the few really antique quilts. Her quilts are at the Smithsonian. One is at the Smithsonian, and the Boston Museum of Fine Arts has one of Harriet Potter's pieces too.
Wow, wow. How long does it take for you to do repairs? How long does it?
It depends on the quilt. I mean, some of them just need a little bit, and others are very extensive, and either you're just sewing down the edges that are already there, or you're adding pieces to it. You know.
So you have people come to you and say, you know, I have this quilt. This is a family quilt, and needs some work done on it. And
we've done that, yeah. And I've also done. I do meat beading at Toast and Strawberries. We still do bridal and bridesmaids alterations and whatever. And I have some very good people working with me. Still, we're doing that.
Now, during the time of Toast and Strawberries, you had designers that would bring their pieces there.
Local designers.
But did you also design any pieces?
I would work with. I don't want to take away from. I would work. I would say to them, we need more evening things, and I would have ideas. But they were all. Lots of education and background. I'm not. They were wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it was important. We did buy a little bit off the New York market, but I really felt that what we know in Washington, there was lots of talent. Every city does, and the main problem is not to lose that talent to New York. And that was, it just, you know, people feel like they're not well received, and it's so hard, and it is New York or Los Angeles or Miami. Those are the fashion centers.
Now, Toast and Strawberries, in the beginning, it's sort of, I think you mentioned in the book that it started as more showroom type?
Because I sold wholesale.
Okay.
I sold at department stores, and I thought we could do wholesale, but we were ground floor. And I thought this could be a showroom shop, and the public could come in, but buyers could come in, and it just totally flipped over to retail.
Isn't that something? Yeah. What do you want your readers to really come away with when they read this book?
I basically am celebrating women, their great-grandmothers, grandmothers, whatever, to celebrate them and their talents and their skills and their struggles and contributions. We just need to slow down and do that. It's just basically we forget to celebrate women.
Now your daughter, does she do any?
She does sewing and whatever. She does real estate otherwise.
Okay.
Sabrina does really.
Okay.
But
you have a daughter and a son.
Yes, and
yeah.
Paul is a DJ Spooky for people who are into music. They should know of him. But my mother's whole family does either music, violin, teaches piano, design. I just think that's what I said, it's in the genes.
Now, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who dream of one day owning their own business, whether it be a boutique or?
Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, you know, we were open, I had staff, we were open 7 days a week at Toast and Strawberries. So you have to have a lot of passion and patience. I enjoyed the people and whatever, but I told people all the time to take accounting courses, because in the very beginning you should be able to do most of the jobs. Then you start hiring other people to do this and that and whatever. But the business part is, I would think, almost as equal to the business idea. You know, if you want to sell gadgets, fine, you want to make them or sell them, but you need to know how to do it, how to be organized at it and whatever. And that's a whole nother skill set. And so you need to have that skill set, especially when you're starting off. You just don't want to be overwhelmed, you know.
Was it hard for you to raise children and try to do the business?
Yes, but my kids were in my bag. I felt having a small business actually was easier, that I didn't have a 9-to-5, you know, hard-nosed thing. But my kids they were in the fashion shows. They came along with me.
So they participated.
They had no choice. And I felt it was obviously good exposure. You want people to be able to talk well. And again, both of them have ended up in sort of arts kind of areas.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of your hobbies and special interests? What?
I just closed the store.
Really
I haven't developed any hobbies yet.
No outside.
Right now, basically the writing part is overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
But I do some biking. I love to travel. I was just in China last year around this time. My parents did a lot of traveling, and I want to get back on that.
Okay. Do you have another project coming up soon like this one?
This has gone 3 editions, and what it means is I started out about 12 12 designers and textile artists. I went to 22 the second day. This is the third, which is 38. I feel still a little bit of a, and I'm so glad we're able to do this show because I still feel weak that I don't have weak areas of the South and Midwest. I'm still looking for women who would be in their upper 80s or deceased, and they're talking to their, their descendants. Those are the people I'm looking for, and I'm looking for the West and the South.
Okay. I thought it was fun to read about, not that I would have wanted your store to close because it sounded so fun and I wanted to go to it when I read about it.
Thank you.
But you had a party. What were the type, who showed up at the party when you did the closing party?
Oh, closing party, everybody. We did over 30 years, and people came in and had pictures of their wedding dresses that we did. They brought pictures of their kids who, the baby carriage. This is the kid on the back who's now, 20-some years old. It was a rather wild experience for me. I mean, it was like a lot because you cannot remember all of that. You just cannot.
And I know you mentioned in the book that getting the business started, which was a whole lot easier than closing the business. It was a whole lot more activities involved in trying to close it and be done.
We said it's like starting a train. Once you start pushing it, you can do it. Stopping it, it's hard. Again, our telephone number at Toast and Strawberry still works. We still get business in. But and again, I miss is that at DuPont, remember every embassy, all kinds of languages per day, all kinds of people. That was really wild and very pleasant. We really do. Created a presence in Washington, and also we had customers from everywhere because there are 5 hotels in our area, so it was all over. And I've had people even in the audience here in Memphis. A woman told me she had a necklace of Toast and Strawberries, so it's a pleasure.
And I'm looking at your earrings. Those are interesting pieces too. Can you tell us a little bit about?
These are bone, and they're done by Kim Lyons. Her firm is Indigo, and they're clips. I don't have pierced ears. And we sold a lot of ears because of that. And we actually designed the earring that went up in the ear that we still sell, that was non-pierced. But everybody thinks these are ivory, but they're bone. They're very light, and they're just a little, but it's funny, if I have it, it means it didn't sell. It didn't sell that well in the store. So almost anything I have didn't sell well. And so as we were closing, there they were. So I said, let me try them. And then everybody comes up to me now and says, oh, they're great. I said, like, where were you, So, and you also, did you design jewelry too? Did you do I work
pieces?
with designers. No, yes, I did, but remember I had such good talent. I might suggest that we need a longer earring, we need this or that. But I also did some beading and pieces like that, Or I found some things where I'd have pieces and say, can you make jewelry out of this and what?
Do you plan to travel anywhere else aside from China? Do you plan to go anywhere else?
India is my next list. I haven't been to India. That's a wild, just the art is so old, you're talking about 5,000 years, and the crafts, so many of our designs and crafts, come out of that area, like what you have on. It has sort of a Chinese Indian feeling. Jewelry, almost any jewelry comes from that area. So it's a wonderful area, resource area for art.
And you plan to buy for your own line?
I might. I'm not really sure. Maybe it'd be nice just to go and visit. I don't know.
Just to relax and visit.
Yeah, and enjoy.
Well, we'd like to thank you for coming to the library system and talking with us today. We're very privileged to have had you here today, and I was so excited about reading the book and actually meeting you. And we'd just like to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. And the library system, of course, I thank everybody who's helped me with work, and it was the library.
You're watching the Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.